if I swear I used to watch some of the videos that you would put up like way back. I mean, probably I gotta go back and look, but I feel like I've seen you doing Franz Bosch stuff
Yes.
like okay, like hip lock work, like going
Yeah.
back like
Many years.
yeah, it
20
might have been like 19.
2017, 2016,
Okay.
2016, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, 2017 there, because I ended up going to the game conference and I learned like firsthand from John Pryor, um, who
That's
applied it.
right. That's who it was with. Yeah.
Yeah, so he applied it all with Japan Rugby, and just so I could, and luckily enough, I got to be the demo guy. Oh, let me just
Okay.
get this going live at least so it's going. But I was the demo guy for his, I guess, practical sessions learning it, and so I got a real in-depth thing on it. So I made those videos just so I could like remind myself all the
Yeah.
different pieces. And I think some of those have like 10,000 views and shit.
Hey, so is this streamed live or is this going to be just a
Both,
video recording?
both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I don't say anything outrageous then.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good on here. But like I just stream it live, and if people tune in, they tune in. Then I just put the recordings up on Mondays.
Okay.
So it works. It works all good that way. But yeah, did the I basically filmed a bunch of that hip block stuff just so I could remember and not forget about whatever, like, things about it. So that's how kind of why I did that.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I'm trying to look at the books. Like his running book, I think is when that was like early 2000s, and I got exposed to him, and then his strength training
And training coordination, I think it is.
yeah, and then the agility book. I read them, I reread them, I read them again. I went through. I watched. I wanted to try and spend at least like close to like maybe 2 years. I put them in training, in everybody's training, like anywhere from like a young kid all the way up to like somebody who was, let's say like 60.
Yeah.
I did a lot of them. I've just like I've almost struggled with them to the
Mm.
point of I've struggled like this with a lot of higher end content, higher end knowledge like that. I'm just like 99% of people doesn't matter. And I wanted to see your take, but I just yeah, I wanted to bring it up though because of the first time I really knew who you were was literally back then, like probably 17 or 18.
Yeah.
So I was watching your videos, and I think at the time you were with a rugby group then, and that's where I remember I would watch your videos and then I would go practice the
Mm.
drill. So I
Yeah.
did want to let you know about that.
No, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's a funny one. I think most of the value from it comes more from bringing more of like a constraints-led approach to actual training versus the isolated drills in the gym. In saying that, some of those isolated drills in the gym I found just kind of like make a good transition from maybe if you're doing like a circuit-based, say a general circuit-based warm-up, and then you might do some of these Bosch style, like that single leg RDL, like snatch or whatever it is.
Mhm.
It's almost like a bridge between the warm-up and then maybe your main power movement or speed movement in the gym, because it just works well in between. Whether it that's the biggest complaint about the system, is that how do you quantify what's actually working? And as you mentioned, like, does it really matter? I don't know, but I think the main things I've taken out of those learnings and with the book is like that constraints-led approach of, okay, in rugby or whatever field-based sport, there are certain things when running that need to happen for an athlete to be proficient, look like they're kind of gliding while they're running. And it's usually like a foot from above hitting the ground, and then like upper lower dissociation. So being able to do things with the upper body while the lower body is maintaining speed. So just setting up things on the field, like I would have for some acceleration stuff, like rubber mats on the ground on the field, and you sprint with rubber mats in random places. And obviously if you're not getting foot from above, you're going to trip. And so it's just kind of building failure into some of those drills to be able to transfer. And you don't have to do just that, because you can go one-to-one. So like even just like simple wicket drills, like sprint, like wickets are a constraint that are going to force that foot from above, and you can go one rep wickets and then one rep without, and you're just transferring the feeling over. And at least that's where I found most of the I guess application. And then obviously there's like a shit ton more, like I think there's like a bunch of ankle stuff you see people doing, and trunk things as well. So there's some stuff there. But again, as you mentioned, like you still got to have the big rocks under it. You can't go, as everyone says, you can't go full Bosch.
Yeah. I think honestly what's funny is like the way you just described those drills as well is honestly probably the best description of a constraint led drill. Like that's the other issue I have is like it's so complex. It's so I don't even know if this is the word. It's complexly put out that it's like, dude, I want to get kids that are 10 to 30 really, really good at whatever sport they're going to do. Like, can you tell me yes or no that this will happen? And like, I'm not saying that this was a real real
Yeah.
discussion, but it's just like this crazy roundabout description of a drill, but you actually just described the drills like a wicket drill really almost through like the Bosch translation. And I think that's what that system almost sort of lacks. They don't make it as simple as possible. Like take a complex thing and simplify it and be able to tell me in 30 seconds because I'm a
Yeah.
dumbass, right? Like that's what I want.
Yeah, the thing that really cemented it for me was, other than getting that practical stuff from John Pryor, was Chris Corfist. He has a, I don't know if he still sells the videos, but he has a, I can't remember what it's called. I've got them, but it's like speed drill, like $10 videos, and he has different series of like I guess you would call them A skips, A runs, or high knees and things like that. But he incorporates the upper body to dissociate them. So say you're doing like a high knee run, but he's doing like pushing and pulling with the arms up and down, or he's doing
While you're doing that,
or
yeah.
rotations while you're doing it. And I was like, but he doesn't mention Bosch or anything to do with that in the videos. And you go, okay, now I start to find the links of what you're trying to achieve with some of these things into, as I guess, more of that speed stuff. Or I guess you could call more games, quote unquote, game speed style drills, because it has a little more application. But it just that really kind of put it into perspective, at least for me.
Yeah. I would agree. I would echo that. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I actually just had a super chat in here. Love both of your work, gents. Thank you very much. Please. Appreciate it. Well, I mean, we're just going to continue on the conversation anyway. It's good. That Bosch stuff is always controversial. I mean, even with because you even look at like their muscle slack theory, and it's kind of like when you take it too far, at least in my opinion, because like true Bosch is like not having counter movements. Because if you have a counter movement, you're not taking up, like he wants everything from like a static start. So you take that slack, you find the optimum length of the muscle, and then you're doing something. And then, that's kind of like, it kind of goes against a lot of the other things that you're probably trying to achieve from training if you're just taking out counter movements and stuff.
Yeah. I think I think where I've struggled with all of this stuff is that if I look at it and I look at the numbers of what we do on site and we are looking at how we test athletes, is it's like still okay. So we do very specific plyometric days. We have speed days here. We have, we also lift very heavy. We also do like dynamic lifts and stuff. And I guess the issue I've always had is like, no matter what we do, like, well, not no matter what, but like what we do is like, we still see if someone's front squat goes up, they jump higher. As long as we're still doing the plyos, as long as we're still doing that. If someone's clean gets to a point, like, and we've from the years of testing people, we can see like, okay, these are around like the body weight numbers, percentages, relative to age, relative to experience training. As long as all of these things are still happening, these controls, if a front squat goes up, or if even like a shot putter, if we see their bench goes up, like, dude, 3 weeks later, they throw farther. Like, I don't know. It's not as And it's not that I dislike the movements in the sense that I think how you were describing it is actually how we ended up now using them is like they're almost more of a warm up
Mm.
before big move. Sometimes we might use them as a warm up, like at a track if we're doing like even just almost like a hip airplane to a hip lock, stuff like that. But it's less so. It's become like for 2 plus years it was like everything we did was in this, and it's just slowly come down to like 5 to 10% of the program. And I guess that's where like the interesting part of it is.
Yeah, and it
I wanted to share that with you though.
yeah, no, I love it. And the other interesting part are the people who are using it almost exclusively. Like, I don't know if you followed like a speed power play, which was I think that was
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
John Price and Lee Eggers.
I don't think they post as much anymore.
No, they still post. I saw a post the other day. They still post every now and then. They definitely don't post as much, but they almost show full training sessions of some of their fighters and other athletes that are essentially all this kind of constraints led or kind of Bosch style stuff, which is it's interesting to see because I almost say it's so skewed towards one side. Like there is, I don't know if they're doing it otherwise or just not posting it, but there is no kind of that maximal strength work. There is no uh, hard ballistic training. It's kind of just like all this. I don't know. I don't even know what you call it, to be honest. But it's like,
I
yeah.
think this is my other issue is like the first day that we had Sam Mattis, who's a discus thrower, he did a snatch to a box. We were like, all right, I just wanted to try and
Mhm.
see, like, first day, single leg snatch to a box. How high can we go? Because in my mind, I did this with Joel Seedman stuff. And like, I never read any of Joel Seedman shit. I literally just watched his
You
stuff
didn't
and was
buy
like,
the
all right,
$300 ebook?
no, no, I did not buy the $300 ebook. Um, but it's funny. I took all Joel Seedman stuff and I was like, okay, if absolute strength, and this is what I think how I see this is like my model of deciphering another system is if absolute strength is poorly applied or if it doesn't have an application. When I would do your system that we have no exposure to, I shouldn't be good at it. I should not be good at it all because I've never done it. So I have no skill. And if it's truly skill based, I should have no ability to do it, or at least minimal because it's skill based. And so like with Joel Seedman stuff, I tried probably 50 exercises. We made a couple YouTube videos. He had claimed that he had a world record bench press. And I just like took a bamboo bar, threw 100-pound dumbbells on and did more than it. I'm like, yeah, some of the movements I like, but like most of them, I'm like, dude, if absolute strength stuff is so bad as a 39 at the time, I'm 41 now, but at the time when I did it, like I shouldn't have been able to just be really good at these movements. And then in the same regard, going back to the Sam discussion, is the first day, and we have this on video. Sam goes forward on a single leg RDL, has 60 kilos on, and just is like, boom, right to two boxes. So about 15 inches. So, I don't know, centimeters wise, I guess that would be 30 to 35
Maybe something
centimeters,
like
right?
that.
Yeah. And like just toys it on each leg, both legs. And I'm like, okay, he's got a 35 to 40 inch vert. Like he's a specimen, he's a beast, but like he also back squats 300 kilos. He cleans 200 kilos. And you're going to tell me that inhibited him as an athlete so that like, but then he goes and does that movement. And dude, I've seen videos of some of these guys that are true 100% Boschers. And it's like, come on, come play American football training like that. You're going to get murdered. Like you'll get destroyed on the field. So like, I think they have their space. They have their place for it. But when you are all 100% on it, I don't think you're appreciating the sports for what they are, really.
If you're anything like me, you're short on time. Kids, family, work, training, and having to cook meals on top of that is just not going to happen. So I'm happy to announce Trifecta Nutrition are sponsoring the podcast. You get epic meals like these ones: turkey taco bowl, Texas barbecue protein plate. These are a couple of my favorites. But it means you don't have to prepare all your own meals, and it makes getting and good nutrition relatively easy. I've tried other meal delivery companies. Most of them are too high fat, not enough carbohydrates, or if you're getting kits where you have to cook it yourself, the portions for 2 is actually for 1, especially if you are like me and you're training often. So if you want to take something off your plate and have meals like this delivered to your door, go down the description. There's a link there where you can order Trifecta meals. This is the performance line, which are higher protein and higher carbohydrate. And you can use code LIFTBIG40. You'll get 40% off your first order. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, you can replace Bosch's with the fascial movements and everything else. I saw you did another functional patterns video the other day. And it's exactly the same thing. Like, everyone's so focused on this isolated thing, and they forget that muscles create movement. But then, you can even look at like this 3-component graph of muscle, like the contractile component, the passive elastic component, the series elastic component. All these 3 things are what contribute to moving bone at whatever it is you're trying to do. And if you're just looking at one thing of those things, you're missing out on everything else. And I mean,
100%. It's like it, and I think that's the interesting part. Not to go off on Nowdy, but like you see the rotational shit, and this is the other weird thing is like, dude, we train throwers, so like,
yeah, like the ultimate rotation sport.
Yeah, it's literally everything we do. So I always laugh because I'm like, dude, are they not watching like other sports that are doing this? Like, I think that's the wild part is it's like some of the most rotationally based athletes I know are also the strongest, but they also lift really heavy and they also have crazy mobility as well. So like, and I know what their mobility is based off their measurements, based off of like mobility people actually measuring them, and like guys that are like doctors, like, look, it's crazy. So I guess not to go too far into like negatively speaking on other people's stuff, but I always think it's like exactly how you just described it. If you're so in tune on, and I would do the same thing if I was like, look, if I just looked at absolute strength movements and was so in on that, I would be ignoring all this other stuff, and it wouldn't be. I would be the absolute strength version. I would be like power lifter version of fat functional patterns. And I think like I was trying to type because I've been having this conversation with one of my close friends on like, what's your mental model? And I wrote this down. I didn't even want to share this. I didn't feel like I needed to share this with you, but it's something that it's like, what's the mental model for explaining biomechanics or physiology and how people, this can be like a deterministic model with factors around constructs and actual measurable quantities, and then how they all statistically or conceptually relate to the outcome of a performance. And I think when you try to have a model with all these different things, that's reality. But if you're taking out everything and you're isolating it, it's not as real. That even came from, ironically, a discussion about speed people, because I think speed people can be the same, where it's like you should just do speed. And it's like so much so that like yeah, sorry, I'm going
No,
off.
you're good. That's good.
I guess it's like if you are just dialed in on speed, or you're just dialed in, and it's interesting because I had this conversation with Aaron Gadsden, who's a triple jump coach, long jump coach. He's coached the Olympic champ from 2024, and he's like, cool, like I can see someone's time in a 20, but what does that matter? I want to see Thea's time. So he got a radar gun because he wants a specific speed at a specific point on the runway. And he's like, I don't think measuring speed in distance matters in some sports, because I want to make sure prior to the last 3 steps that her movement is at this speed. Or Jordan, the guy that almost won the Diamond League in the triple jump from Jamaica, the other guy he coaches, is at this speed at this point and this speed at this point. And it's interesting because to hear him say that, as a guy who speed is a huge component of triple jump, he's actually like basically saying like, if we measured speed in a 40-yard dash, let's say, like it's not immeasurable. For him, it's not immeasurable. So we have to know the construct of how people view whatever the hell they're measuring. And to say, and I'm saying this because I'm preparing for a podcast with like a really big speed guy, and I'm not anti-speed. I'm just like, thinking through, like trying to punch holes in their arguments for the discussion
Yeah.
purpose, really. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if any of that shit makes sense. I don't know.
No, it's perfect. It's the whole point of the podcast is to ramble and stuff like this. And it's funny how you mentioned like speed at certain points, because the same thing with like maximal absolute strength. Like you have these big ceiling numbers like max velocity, absolute strength, etc. But obviously all sports are constrained by time, and everything is almost comes down to how quickly can you get there. So it's like how quickly can you accelerate to whatever velocity, how quickly can you produce force, how quickly can you produce power, how quickly your heart rate can get into essentially close to maximal heart rate, how quickly your heart rate can come back down. Like everything is just time based and how quickly you can do something. As you mentioned, if you're too far on one side, if you just like powerlifting is everything, you're going to have problems. If you're just whatever else, you're going to have problems, just because some of these qualities, they are helpful. Like maximal strength is helpful, but to a certain point. If you're doing not other stuff and doing maximal strength, you're going to have negative adaptations towards speed. And those negative adaptations aren't just, oh, I'm slow and stiff. It's kind of like, muscle architecture changes, tendon changes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that all kind of comes with it.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like this fine balance of all of these qualities. And the crazy part is like, yo, if I try to get like a strength coach to even identify what are the qualities, like what are the characteristics that we need to dial in on, people can't. I mean, it's like I don't have to go political, but I always ask this about the government. What's the purpose of the government? If we all define the purpose of the government and the role and the spaces the government should be involved in, we would at least identify where we can have debates. And it's the same thing with strength and conditioning. If we just identified the areas, the characteristics that we have to work on, then it makes it at least it would likely prevent that argument that like it would prevent the guy from going all powerlifting, or it would prevent the guy going, all speed based. Because, even what's funny is we did a podcast with this guy who's the strength coach at Tulane, and he goes, look, max strength does have an impact on speed to a point, like age and capability, strength. You get a kid, he's 18, he's never lifted before, and he goes, his back squat goes from 135 to 315. He's like, I guarantee you he's going to get faster. Now, after that point, it's more about durability. Like that max strength might keep him more stable. And if we just maintain that max strength, maybe he gets a little bit stronger, but we keep that durability there. Now we can train his speed. But if we back off entirely, now he might get hurt quicker. So it's interesting of like balancing these things. And that's where, to me, that's a much more, okay, so we're going, okay, strength is one of them, speed's one of them. Those are characteristics we have to identify, that we have to be training in one specific way or in multiple ways, but we have to balance how much we're going to push one versus the other based off of where the athlete is. And that's where I think the debate needs to come down to, not like, you can't measure strength. This is from one of the podcasts I'm prepping for. I'm like, okay, you can't measure strength. I could make an argument you can't measure speed based off of what Aaron said. Well, Aaron wants to know what the speed is at a specific point, and if he has to have a radar gun, like, also, are we measuring the arm speed? Are we measuring the peak velocity of the movement of the athlete running? Are we measuring the average velocity? Like, there's so many arguments you can make with all this stuff. So
you can nitpick anything at this point.
yeah, that's the whole thing. And it's like, we shouldn't nitpick, because at the end of the fucking day, like, dude, I got to deal with kids that are 10 to 30. Like, most of our athletes are 10 to 20 years old, and then I got 20 plus athletes that are like world-class Olympic NFL style guys. Most of the time it's like, do your plyos, squat more, and jump more. Like, that's it. We're here to hold these fuckers accountable. That's it.
Yep. Yep. And that basic stuff always works. You mentioned as well you mentioned you have the almost like performance thresholds. Do you have anything off the top of your head where you kind of see, once you reach a certain level on certain lifts, that going any further, may give you some benefits, but may not translate to performance as well?
Yeah, in most cases, like if we would look at, so also for us, going into the confines of what we focus on, we look at explosiveness. So this could be, the way we measure explosiveness would be a broad jump, a vertical jump. Clean does bleed into explosiveness. It leaks into max strength a little bit as well, but it's mainly explosiveness, like a power clean we would put in there, but mainly some type of simple jump that, let's say you're at your house and you know you have a kid and you're like, all right, let's test your vertical or let's test your broad. You can do it pretty easily. And then we would look at strength. So this would be like a back squat, a front squat, a single leg squat, a bench press, a pull up. You know, we don't do a lot of deadlifts. We do deadlifts, but we don't measure them unless you're a power lifter. And then we're looking at speed. So we want to see a 10, we want to see a 20, a flying 10, a flying 30. Those are those assessments. And then we have endurance work. So we're looking at like a 7-minute assault bike. We might look at a 5K. We might look at a 60-minute run. What's the average? Okay, so we have those as assessments. Those are the 4 areas is explosiveness, speed, strength, and endurance. And then when we look at it, it's like, okay, if I see someone's front squat get to like 1.8 to 2 times body weight, you won't see any more improvements, and it takes a long time to get there. So the front squat relative to like a vert or a broad. Okay, so if you have a vert or a broad or a 10, a 10-yard sprint, you will push. Let's say you take a kid and they front squat 1.2 times body weight, and then they front squat 1.4 times, and then they front squat 1.7 times, and then all of a sudden they're at 1.8. You'll see that there are other things, as long as we're still doing them, will improve up until around 1.8 to 2 times, depending on the athlete. Really, really good athletes can push that number a little bit higher because they're able to use it better in most cases. Athletes that might not be as coordinated might have to do more work in that specific test for it to move up. So front squat 1.8 to 2 times, back squat, 2 times to 2.2 times. Dude, these are big numbers. Like, you're looking at a kid in high school, ass to grass back squatting, if they're a middle linebacker weighing 220, we've got to get them to anywhere around like a 200K to 230K back squat. And we would probably see, if they're back squatting ass to grass 500 pounds in high school, they're probably going to have a 35 to 40 inch vert. They're probably going to have a clean around 330 to 350. They're probably going to have somewhere, if they're a linebacker, running like a 4.7 in a 40. Their shuttle time, that's another measure of speed I didn't mention, will also improve. Probably would run like a 4.2. Now, this is a good athlete, a good kid. So for like front squat, 1.8 to 2 times, back squat, and this is from all of our data on site, 2 to 2.2 times. Power cleans usually around 1.5 to, and that's pretty heavy, 1.5 to 1.6 times. A full clean, you would probably see 1.6 to 1.7. Those are big lifts. Like, these are heavy, so it takes a while to get there. Single leg front or single leg squat. So like a rear leg elevated split squat is what other people call them. We just call them single leg squats. This number is usually around 1.5 to 1.6. Bench press is usually about 1.7 to 1.8. It's actually sort of weird. It's because it's close to, it's around a little more than the power clean, a little bit less than the front squat. I'm trying to think off the top of my head as far as, so I did front squat, I did back squat, I did single leg squat, I did the cleans. A snatch you would see 1 times to 1.2 times, 1.25 times. I'm like trying to envision the case studies that we have. And then the pull up, not so much in other areas. That's more specific to like a sport like swimming or wrestling. So that's there's not as much of a carryover to like a med ball throw is another explosive measurement that other people use. We don't use it, but other people use it, and we know that the bench will actually increase that. So that would be the main lifts. If you're doing like a clean or a front squat or a single leg squat or a back squat, those are the numbers that once you push past that. So like, okay, so we got back from world champs with our elite group. We had 7 athletes at world championships for track and field. We come back. Okay, how did everybody do? Well, we had, our Samoan dude got 3rd in the discus. So we got a medal. 7 people there. We get a medal. Pretty freaking good job. Like, I think pretty good job, especially for an unfunded athlete, to beat the shit out of guys that are getting funded by full federal governments. We did a good job. Now, does the benefit come from, Alex's case, who's the medalist, or like Sam, the American discus thrower, who we mentioned doing the snatch with a single leg RDL? His back squat's 280. Is he gonna throw farther, throwing or squatting 300 kilos, which is 660? Probably not. Will it help him hold his finish a little bit longer so he can accelerate a little bit more? Maybe. I don't know. Like it could. Like it might. Um Behind the neck jerk measure of explosiveness that we do is like if he back squats 300, I know he's going to behind the neck jerk 240. He's done 227. And if he hits the split position, which is a direct mimic of, and I'm not a huge sports specific guy, but like it's a very similar position to the finish on the discus, it might actually lead to a better transfer in that position at the front. And like, also, I'll, not to get too in the weeds of the technique of the discus, but like the position on the back emulates a position at the front. So like there's an argument that you could make, like, yeah, if he's a little more stable and if he can maintain his explosiveness, his twitchiness, we might see a little bit of a push on his back squat to 290 to 300. It would transfer, but it would transfer in the other lifts that the back squat also pushes. So it's like, now you got to play this game and then you got to play the season and then you got to look at the season. And it's like, I don't want to worry about like, if we got to do a single leg RDL rotating hip lock, when I can just play this numbers game based off of all the analysis that we do. And I might use that exercise I just mentioned as one of his warm-ups. And he might say like, yo, I feel better when I do that in my hamstrings or whatever it might be. But yeah, I'm even trying to think when we see 10s and 20s, because we do a lot of 10s, we do a lot of 20s, we do 20-yard sprint with a 12 kilo load. And that is like directly correlated to that 1.5 times single leg squat. Like that is a test that we use a lot with field athletes that have resistance. And it's a test that we use a lot with wrestlers because they're going against resistance in an opponent. So that's the other thing, is we like to have the assessments sort of resemble a situation. Like if you're a D lineman or O lineman, you're coming off the line, so you have resistance when you make impact, and you have a longer ground contact time. So having a resisted test and speed, I think, does correlate to a point in those cases. And in a wrestling mat, when you putting force into the mat and then the mat sinks a little bit, that's where we'll use that test, that weighted test. So a single leg squat carries over really, really well to how many bounds does it take you to go 20 yards. And then when we're running the weighted 20-yard with 12 kilos on, that it's like a literal just direct correlation. This goes up, this gets faster. This goes up, this gets faster, up to like 1.5 times. So yeah, I'm just trying to like tap into my brain and share those things. I'm trying to think if there's some things around explosive push-ups when we measure on a jump mat, with bench press, speed bench. We also do a time bench that we use video timing, like specific weights for high school versus post collegiate throwers, and male and female. So we'll test that. And we have recently started doing a lot more stuff with VBT on squats and bench too, but I don't have enough data on that stuff.
Yeah. Dan, that's cool. Making my head turn on all different things. Like you could even, like with the rest of the stuff, like load velocity profile them based on like resistance sprints, and you could program resistance sprints based on like optimal power load if you wanted. And then, I mean, shit, you've even got, even with throwers, I guess you could do like rate of force, rate of power development, like force at 200 millisecond. I mean, you need equipment to do this shit, but you know, it's just some fucking cool stuff you could do off the back of all that too. That, man, yeah.
Well, and so
yeah,
some of the things, and maybe this would be okay. So I try to set everything up so that all of us that coach here, it's like simple shit. Like now we have a 1080. We have the Vault speed gates. We got a jump mat. We also have the Vertec, like old school vertical jump. So we have multiple ways to measure all this. Looking at like a running back, okay? So we have a kid, one of our running backs is one of the best D2 running backs. This dude's a dog, okay? His name's Jaden Stewart. He plays at Kutztown. Kutztown's number 3 in the country. He's, this past weekend averaged like 9.5 yards per carry, had 2 touchdowns. They're good. Jaden's case was, okay, by midsummer, he's single leg squatting 185 kilos. He's running a very fast time with the 1080 12K test. Legend, who does all our speed shit, comes to me and he's like, and he knows I also have FOMO. If we don't lift heavy or we don't clean heavy, I just feel like we're missing something. But he comes into me and he's like, look at the data, look at the chart. And so we have a spreadsheet for the football guys, the guys that are like the good, you know, the guys that we think can do like really big damage. The high school kids were just like, yo, just shut up and squat more and jump more and we'll be fine. But with Jaden, he goes, look, Jaden's flying 10 is just under 1 second. It's fast, but it's not like blow your doors off fast. His 40's good. 40's like a 4.6 at the time. Flat. So he's like, I think Jaden's low hanging fruit. So I would call this like a load velocity profile to a point. It's not official, but it's like, he goes, I think if we just ease up a little bit with the lifting, and when we're running on Tuesdays, because that was our day to do max accelerate or max velocity work. If we could get him like maybe one extra rep and he's a little fresher, and then after the third or fourth week we back off and he just does the same amount of reps, but he's still fresher and he's moving faster, we might get him to run like a 4.50 on the 40 because his other speed is there. His acceleration's phenomenal. His strength is already good. And it's like, okay, then we can back off. And these are like adjustments that we make without like, yes, we have equipment. We're in a privileged situation, but we're not in like a crazy, we're not like an NFL combine group. We don't have that type of tech. So it's like our whole goal is that we can make those adjustments with minimal tech and still really see an improvement. And in Jaden's case, that's what ended up happening. He runs a really good 40, feels faster in the middle of the season. I think because we actually ran him too hard towards the end of the prep. I actually think we probably had too much volume on his high speed days. But then now he's, in the season and he's running really well. So I think that, I don't know. I was trying to share like how we would do our version of a load velocity.
No, love it. It's perfect. I had a question in the chat here as well. Actually, I've had a couple of questions like this, I think, for you around the same kind of theme, but I'm interested in what you both think about weightlifting derivatives. If you'd progress a snatch grip, high pull, or clean pull from a high hang instead, and if so, what numbers you'd look for if so. So I guess the question is, weightlifting derivatives, yay or nay? Would you use them over maybe a full lift, or do you use them in conjunction with them? And then what numbers you'd look for?
Okay, so this is where I would go to that statement of what's the model? Like, what's the mental model? Because I'd be like, okay, is this for athletes? Is this for weightlifting? Like a weightlifting athlete or sports performance?
Sport athletes.
Yeah. And honestly, first, the way we teach our athletes is we teach no feet movements for like our football guys. So like, there's videos. We have Nick Singleton, who's running back at Penn State, has sadly part of the greatest collapse in the history of college football, possibly. But Nick in high school cleaned 160. And if you watch his feet, he doesn't really move. Like he barely moves his feet at all because we teach what I would argue is a derivative. We teach sliding, we teach no feet movements a lot. So we tend to use box movements for our performance athletes. End hangs, a lot of box stuff because we tend to single leg squat really heavy, a lot heavier than most people do. So we want to I think boxes, actually that's even the discussion I wanted to have with you. That was the video you posted, was the impulse aspect of 2 boxes. So, that was, I think I might've commented on that.
Yeah. That's the one from the Just Fly podcast, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, we use derivatives a lot. I love them. And then I would argue part of our progression, we do have a top down progression, we have a bottoms up progression. But if we go top down, which I prefer, we go set the grip, set the stance. We'll go like a snatch press. We'll do what we call a weeks rack. So we'll do like almost an external rotation with the bar. Then we do overhead squat, then we do snatch balance, and then the next part of that progression is we go to a high hang snatch with a slow eccentric, and then we do like a high hang muscle into that position. Then we go into the high hang power, then a high hang full. So to answer their question, um that's how we think through that, and we use derivatives, and we I really like high hangs for performance athletes in general, especially if their vertical sucks. If we have a kid who squats a lot and their vert is like, let's say they back squat 405, and their vert's like 27 inches. It's like, dude, how are you a Gumby? Like, come on. And so we'll use slow eccentric high hangs into a power snatch or a power clean, but usually a power snatch because it's a little bit, it emulates sort of like what their trunk would be doing on a vert. But then also we'll do almost where they're doing like a rhythm pull into that from a high hang. So yeah, we use all those.
Are there times, maybe even we can just go combat athletes or any athletes where you would go with powers or even just pull variations over the full lifts?
Powers, yeah, we use over the full lifts. And again, I don't think that like one's better than the other. I think it's dependent. I think some kids learn really well uh doing power into a full. They get confident in that case. Like if you have a kid, if we would look at like, yo, when we tested, this kid's power clean was 93% of his full clean. Like a lot of athletes when they first come to us, their power clean's higher than their full. A lot of people that even follow us, that's a common AMA question. I'm like, well, one, you should power clean less, and two, increase your front squat so you get really, really stupid strong in your front squat, and then you're going to see the full clean will go up. And if you're full cleaning more, that's a skill, so that becomes better. You asked about pulls. Yeah, we use pulls. Especially if we're getting close to peaking, we'll back off on full lifts and we'll do partial pulls for like almost like a speed aspect with the throwers. If we have someone whose wrist is banged up from football or wrestling, or some swimmers, if I don't want them to go overhead too much because it's in season, they might do a high hang snatch pull, and not, or a two box snatch pull, but not actually rack it, just because they do so much volume in the pool. So like, yeah, that we do that. Now heavy pulls, I would argue, as much as we do heavy pulls with our weightlifters, we really don't do that much heavy pulling with our performance athletes outside of RDLs. We don't do a lot of cleans and snatch pulls. Not saying I'm not like that I'm opposed to it. We just don't piece it in as much because we squat more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I mean, I think you liked my reel. I did actually reacting to your video, basically saying a very similar thing. But I also wanted to touch on further around, because I think people often have these questions around weightlifting as well. Like if someone doesn't have the mobility or whatever, overhead position, the snatch, front rack, and the clean, are there other movements that you're typically going to, dumbbell variations, throws, jumps, or anything like that?
If they don't have, okay, so I'll use Alex actually as an example. And it's funny because I got into this argument with the guy from Strength Coaches Network. He,
Which one? Like what?
Justin.
Oh yeah,
Justin. Yeah. Also, I'm like, I can hear like a mouse over in the wall, like chewing on something. Dude, we live in the middle of freaking nowhere, and it's like, I know I'm gonna set up a mousetrap and catch him. That's my ADHD brain. Okay, go back to the question. Shit, you asked me
about if you don't have the mobility, like are there other?
Okay, yeah. Okay, Alex, right? God damn, I'm so stupid. So with Alex's case, okay, 33 years old. He's got two kids. He's older. Sometimes his shoulders bug him if he just catches a snatch a little weird. So the last 4 weeks, he was just doing high pulls and clean pulls like this. Like high hang or a high pull with it. Now, myself, I'm actually trying to force myself to clean again. So I've been going through mobility drills. I'm trying to give myself like 6 months. If I have somebody, like, let's say a good example, we had tight end in the NFL. He comes in, he hits me up. I can't clean. I don't want to snatch. Okay. This was the argument I had with Justin. I was like, listen, it's not that I think everybody has to weightlift. It's not that I believe that, but I do believe this. If I have a 12-year-old kid and he grows up and they're 12-year-old kid here, 12-year-old kid here, and they're the exact same person, they have the exact same exposure, except one thing: this athlete has the weightlifting exposure, everything else is the same, this athlete doesn't. I guarantee you this person, this 12-year-old, will become the better athlete. That's the
They
one I
actually,
believe. That's
there
what
was a paper published recently doing that exact thing. Dr. Andrew Pichardo, a colleague he studied it in New Zealand too. When I was there, he's in the IMG Academy in Florida now, and they just released a paper a little while ago on youth 12 to 14-year-old golfers, strength training with Olympic weightlifting versus no strength versus strength training without Olympic weightlifting, and they show
okay.
better coordinative. I can't remember the outcomes, but basically better coordination plus strength on the other end of the weightlifting group versus the non-weightlifting. I'll send it to you after this or something.
Okay, cool. So, and in using the young kid example, this is the missing part, is like, part of our training, part of our system, part of our model is that we learn what type of person we're coaching. So we have essentially 3 types of like labels. I know that's a bad way, but like we have 3 labels we put on kids. And then the way that we analyze them from their mindset perspective is it's going to impact how we speak to them. But when we're teaching them the technical aspect of a weightlifting movement, we see how they react to our cues. That we can see how they react to criticism, and that's something that I think it plays a huge role in how successful we are with our kids here. Is that we can see how well they learn, and then the kid also realizes that they have to be skilled. They have to have a technique to display this strength. Now, to go back to this discussion, I said to Justin, I'm like, I don't think you have to be doing weightlifting movements. And in the case of a football player, dude in the WWE that was one of the best pro wrestlers, he didn't want to do the weightlifting stuff, but he needed to work on his explosive stuff. So, okay, well, that would come back to where's their squats, front squats, single leg squats, where are they at? Because that we know that does have an impact. We might increase possibly volume of lower intensity jumps, so like pogo hops or jump ropes, or something easier like that, skips, a lot more skips and stuff along those lines. We might introduce more hurdle hops then after they are in the system for 2 to 3 weeks, or 2 to 3 programs. Then we're going to do more intensive work like a hurdle hop or something along those lines that can potentially beat them up a little bit more because it is more intense on the ground reaction. So I think hurdle hops, I think bounds, I think broad jump, like single leg bounds, power skips for height, skips for distance. I think dumbbell jumps to a point, maybe. Yeah, we'll do dumbbell snatches with athletes, wrestlers, especially if they want to feel explosive. I don't think the dumbbell snatch is amazing, but I think it's good for them to feel a little bit of a pop. Trap bar jumps to a point. We don't use them a ton, but like we use them enough that I would say that would be like a possible replacement. But really it's like the strength to plyometric stuff that we're really looking for in those cases, is like, okay, where's their strength here? Okay, if their strength is good, well, let's just add a little bit more plyometrics and see what happens there, and they're going to be twitchy. So that would be my answer.
Is there a reason that you typically don't use loaded jumps a lot?
No.
No.
Yeah, like, I mean, the funny thing is like, I think older people like myself, I use them a lot. I think I would say for me, I would have to really think through where I would put it into a program. So like the way we set up the entire 20 weeks when we go into assessments and stuff, and I would really want to see what I would take out, and where I would put loaded jumps to see if they would have an impact that's negative or positive. I don't think they're bad. I mean, we will do like a loaded dumbbell jump, and then you drop the dumbbells, and you do a broad jump into a hurdle hop or something like that. You get creative and things like that. And maybe I would do that 10 weeks out from like a peak for the thrower, and then maybe the last 4 to 6 weeks we don't do any of the loaded jumps because I want to move it even quicker. I don't th I don't have any I don't have anything against them to say that we just don't do them that much.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing a lot of weightlifting as well, you kind of
That's the thing, we
carrying that as
clean
well.
your snatch so much that it's like,
Yeah.
that's where I would say that that would have an impact on the change, and, like, um, yeah, I mean, we're cleaning we have like, the kids, like, we clean a lot, so that replaces a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. On, I guess on kind of this structure topic, with fighters, I mean, I guess wrestlers have a predictable kind of season going, especially with college. But maybe with other fighters, if you have any experience there, uh, does that change maybe the way you structure things, where it's kind of unpredictable? Maybe when they have a fight coming up, or they always kind of have to be ready.
So I think guys in MMA have to keep a 60-minute run or a 5K baseline. Like, you've gotta have a baseline of, like, I can go out and in 60 to 90 minutes put in, let's say you got a middleweight guy, X mileage, or, if you're on the bike, like, you have a certain tempo that you have to hold for 60 to 90 minutes out, like, basically in perpetuity, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't need to be crazy. If you can go out, and in my opinion, that would be, you get a middleweight guy, and it's like, if you go 60 plus minutes, like, you should be able to run 7 miles in 60 minutes as a guy that's a middleweight. Maybe you're walking around 205, 215, but, like, it's not that fast of a mile pace. um, that might sound crazy, but, like, even a 5K, like, dude, you should be able to run, like, a 25 to 28-minute 5K as,
Yeah,
like, a fighter. You wanna fight and
and
be good and go
even
to the
that's slow.
UFC? Yeah, yeah, it's like, I I think they should, because it's so unpredictable, maintain that, because then if you can maintain, 2 to 3 days a week, you gotta get some long, slow work done, 2 days a week. You can maintain that. And then if you get a call and you got a fight that just jumps on the calendar and it's 6 weeks out, you can increase your endurance quick by adding in some crazy like high intensity work. Like, get on the bike, do the, like, 30 seconds on, 15 off for 15 minutes. And your endurance just skyrockets after 2 weeks. So, like, I think if you're constant, and I would look at it that way, the same way, is like, I'm always going to be this baseline. I'm always going to be this baseline of strength. And I'm always going to, and then I would base this off of, is the fighter, so using like a freestyle wrestler, and I'll use this example with Nick Wazowski, the 2-time world bronze medalist that we had. Nick always had a good gas tank. So endurance was never his issue. We knew that baseline, we could just basically, like, just him wrestling and then getting on an assault bike or getting on a treadmill, he can maintain that really, really well. Okay. His area, which ended up being pretty much why he lost to Gable Stevenson, is that he wasn't as explosive. But that's where it's like, we would try to keep that explosiveness baseline higher. So, like, in that case, okay, we got to make sure his clean doesn't go below 130. We got to make sure his verter is broad, that we're doing this much plyometric work baseline. So you sort of look at those key areas in a fighter, and then you set the baselines for where their strength is, where their explosiveness is, where their endurance is, and then based off of what type of fighter they are, you might have more. You might have one of them a little bit higher baseline because it's really weak for them. Like, it's just like, it takes too long for them to get that going once they get moving in a camp. So I think that the way we see it then is, like, going back to the beginning where we talked about explosiveness, strength, speed, endurance. Speed in the case of a fighter, I my model of speed is locomotive. So it's sprinting. It's not as impactful in a sport like MMA or wrestling, because there's no locomotion in the traditional sense of how my model of speed is. Speed, now explosiveness, I would say, like, their striking ability, that would be underneath the explosiveness. So I would try to have their off-season training based around wherever the next low-hanging fruit is for them. That's what we're focusing on at that moment. and it might be they can only back squat 135. Dude, there's a lot of fighters that just don't want to lift. Like, they just hate lifting. They think it's like the worst thing for them. And my argument would be like, just back squat 225. You know, it's not that hard to do that. We can get 12-year-old kids to do it. Grown ass men should be able to back squat 225 for reps. So that's where I would look at where their strength is, where their explosiveness, where their endurance is, base that off of, and have these, we sort of have like a spider chart that we use internally. And then that's how we would gauge their off season. And then when in season, when the fight comes, when the camp comes, that's when it's like, well, one, you got to meet with whoever their coaches are, and then be able to gauge like, okay, we got to back off of this because that could hinder their technique here. Or, you know, this kid can't react. This kid dies after he does some high intensity work. So make sure that we do that the day before he has a break. That's how I look at an MMA guy. Wrestling would be a little different.
For wrestling, I don't have much. I guess I don't know that much about the collegiate wrestling system, but from my outside view looking in, at least from random stuff, the season is relatively compact. And are they're weight cutting almost like every week, some of these guys?
Yeah.
So how are you working around things like that?
Okay, so the way the season gets laid out, I could walk you through the whole season right now. Okay, right. Is their season's basically starting in the next 2 weeks. So end of October, early November, season starts. No one really cares. They're open tournaments, but younger kids, it's great. Get on the mat, get good experience. You don't want to throttle them during this time. At least in my opinion, this is how I approach it. But we'll still be training pretty tough at this time. Okay. Early. So they'll have a big tournament in December. Some of them will go to, there's a couple big tournaments. You might go to Vegas for like Cliff Keen. You might go to Midlands, whatever. Wherever big tournament you're doing in December, that's where training is really going to be geared towards in the front half of the season. Now, the other thing is you're probably going to have some non-conference duel that might happen in some cases. If you're outside the Big Ten, that will happen. If you're in the Big Ten, the dual season really just matters with your conference schedule. So for me, it's push them during November, but it's really like a rolling schedule, and it's dependent upon who's going to wrestle in an open, but they're getting redshirted that year. So we might back off of those guys because we want them to wrestle well in the open, but they're getting redshirted. So their priority is beginning of the year. The other group is, okay, these guys' priority might be that first big tournament in Las Vegas, right? So we're going to set up training around them. And in the case of our guys, South Dakota State, but they're going to be wrestling Minnesota end of November, early December. So that week of Minnesota, we got to back off a little bit. So we're still going to push the guys that are starters going into those open tournaments because their priority is later. The guys that are redshirted, it's different. Then they go home for break. Some kids don't do shit. Some kids do something. Now, as I say this, the guys that are cutting, they have their own training. They only have one day that they're doing strength work. The rest of the time, they're doing full body, like plyometric based stuff. And then they got to get on the bike. We do 7-minute tests all the time on every single piece of freaking cardio equipment because their match is 7 minutes. And mentally, this is where I'm not sports specific, but I am, because wrestlers, they want to do a 7-minute assault bike test and they want to see that improve. So then when they get into their 7-minute match, they feel better. And that's just like, it's not that it's sports specific. It's just like, that's a mental game. They're wired different. They're crazy. So then they come back, right? And they'll have a couple weeks where it's not that intense in January, 2 to 3 weeks. So we can get pretty good training in. And then once their dual season starts for in this case, Big 12s, it's like 6 weeks for where we're going. One big lift is on a Monday. They have a half-ass speed type lift on a Wednesday, and then that's it. They're not lifting the rest of the week because Friday, Sunday, they have duels. So Monday they lift again. Wednesday, they got a speed prep type thing, and then duels are Fridays and Sundays. And then they go in, once that season's over, they get about a week off. And then we got to prep for the Big 12 tournament. Then we got another week off and it's NCAA tournament. So you're playing like the last 8 weeks is just playing around with that schedule. You're not, all your work's already done from the beginning part of the year. That's why you still want to get work done early. The weight, and then the weight guys, you just got to manage and make sure that they, one, that they're not eating like crap, two, that they're not drinking, which is really hard with, college kids. And then it's not really hard, but it's part of the game. And then three, that like they're not getting beat up from the training. And then out of season, their big lifts are typically always on Saturdays. So like, I mean, out of season is a whole nother discussion. So that's sort of how I set up that the entire collegiate year, thinking through the guys getting redshirted, thinking through the starters, thinking through strength of schedule, thinking through the conference, thinking through peaking at conference, thinking through the NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament, like, dude, you can't peak wrestlers the way you're going to peak a thrower or a weightlifter. Like that NCAA tournament is, I would make the argument, the most brutal collegiate event in as a one-off event in all of college sports. Like the college playoff for football right now is pretty brutal, but it's multiple events. As a one-off event, I don't think there's another sport that is as intense as
How
that.
is it structured?
It's structured so they travel out on, like, let's say on a Tuesday. Okay, they get there Tuesday or Monday. Yeah, if you're funded like Iowa and Penn State and those schools, you get out there probably on a Sunday with a back rub and a massage. But most of these schools would get out like a Tuesday. They prep on Wednesday. They'll weigh in Thursday morning, and then they're wrestling Thursday until Saturday night. So it's 3 straight days, and you got to win 4 matches, to win the whole thing. Sometimes 5. If you win a match or you win 2 matches and then you lose, dude, you might have 8 or 9 matches on the weekend. Like it's brutal, and it's also the intensity, the every match. Dude, you'll see guys that'll get second at NCAAs or third at NCAAs or win it, and every single match they won by 1 or 2 points because it's so tight. There's the ability, like, anyone can win at any moment. There, and it's just, you're on edge the whole time. So it's like it's a very, very challenging event, and you can't have them beat up and be stressed leading into the tournament.
Damn, that's good to know. Living in Texas, I need to know this stuff because I'm just like the the Big 10, Big 12. I'm just like, fuck. What are all these different conferences? I don't even know who's in what.
Yeah.
It's like the most confusing thing. But yeah, super interesting with in season. I can imagine it's challenging. I mean, I guess it's similar to kind of other sports like rugby where you're playing every weekend, but obviously you don't have the weight cut factor in rugby. So
Right, and I would say, I don't know if I would relate this to like high school football guys that we have. It's like, even with the high school football guys, it's a little different with the collegiate guys. And maybe I should just relate it to the collegiate level, but like the collegiate guys that come in, the football guys, if they're playing someone who's like, Kutztown again is good. If they're playing somebody who's, I don't know, like 3-5 or 3-6, like they can get a little more work in that week. It's pretty clear. As long as they're not sore going into the game, they're going to be able to perform pretty well. They have a little caffeine, they take some Advil, they'll feel fine, and they'll smash the team, right? I think that's where, related to football, is like football, you can do this rolling thing pretty easily, in the sense that, like, if you have a scrubby team, you can get a really good week of work. You don't want to look past them. But with wrestling, it's like, dude, the top 25 guys are all freaking good. It's a tough sport, dude. It's hard. It's crazy. So
yeah, I've wrestled with some past state champs here in Texas, and I don't have wrestling background. I was just purely wrestling from jiu-jitsu, and I was like, fuck, this is like, there's levels, and these guys are just like past state champs, and they're just fucking, it's just crazy.
machines.
You just, holy shit, man! Like, just the understanding of the movements and everything. I'm just like, yep, that's that's why they're so good. But
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to take all your time, Dan. We're going over an hour. But where can people find and follow you? Keep up with what you're doing.
So they could follow the Garage Strength YouTube channel. Just, it's Garage Strength. I have my own Instagram channel. My own Instagram page is Ghostface D Miller. We also have our own Instagram, Garage Strength, and then we have a strength training app. It's known as Peak Strength. So we have an Instagram at Peak Strength app. We got a website. The app is essentially how we program everybody here on site. And we built this out. We've done all the design, all the software stuff behind it on the back end. And we're right now, a lot of the stuff that we do with assessments and with the spider graphs, we're like doing, like developing. So it's really fun to see how the app is developing related to what we do here with all of our athletes on site. And it really just gives a lot of people that chance to train with us who might be on, the other side of the country, the other side of the world. I was literally in Iceland 2 weeks ago, and a guy came up to me in a supermarket in a town called Selfoss, and he's like, "Yo, I train on peak strength, and I know who you are." And it's like,
That's cool.
that's yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's where you can find us.
Perfect. And I appreciate you coming on, Dane. I mean, we could have gone for hours on this, so we might have to do a part two at some point. But I appreciate you coming on and sharing everything.
Thanks for having me and responding in on Instagram. That's awesome. That was fun.
Cheers.
Peace.